Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle, and in this March Mystery Madness video, we're going to play a game! Yay! First, I need to give you the answer to yesterday's My March Mystery Madness Mindbender. The clue was, which award-winning series features a cold northern setting, a bilingual detective, and mouth-watering descriptions of food? And the answer is Armand Gamache series by Louise Penny. This is A Trick of the Light, and these are a great mystery series, and the descriptions of food in these books truly are mouth-watering. They are set in Quebec, in Canada, sometimes, often, in a very small village called Three Pines. I can highly recommend this series. Check out Louise Penny's Armand Gamache series. So, let's get into this game. We are going to play Would You Read That Book? I have 3 bowls. Let me see if I can show them all to you. Here we go. The red bowl has detectives in it. The green bowl has sidekicks. And the blue bowl has settings. What I'm going to do is choose randomly one slip of paper from each bowl. And I'm going to put a detective together with a sidekick in a setting and ask the question, would you read that book? Now, I tried to pick fairly well-known detectives and their sidekicks, so I hope you recognize all of these, and this is just for fun. So again, put down in the comments down below which of these are books that you would read. And let's go. So I am going to choose a detective, a sidekick, and a location. The first book, the detective, is Albert Campion. The sidekick is the vicar from St. Mary Mead. And the setting is the ancestral home of the Earls of Asherton, 1991. Would you read that book? With Albert Campion, the vicar of St. Mary Meads, as his sidekick, in the ancestral home of the Earls of Asherton in 1991. Awesome. Okay. Next book. We'll have... The detective is Nero Wolfe. His sidekick is Archie Goodwin. Okay, that's hilarious because that is his actual sidekick. But they are in a Yorkshire village flooded to make a reservoir. Would you read that book? I knew that was going to happen, that you're going to actually get the right detective with the right sidekick. Okay, moving on. The next book possibility is the detective is Precious Remotesway from the #1 Ladies Detective Agency. Her sidekick is Sergeant Lewis from the Morse books set in Oxford. And the setting is a New York City brownstone in the 40s. Would you read that story? With Precious Remotesway and her sidekick Sergeant Lewis in a New York City brownstone in the 1940s. I think I would read that story. Okay, let's do another one. This is actually kind of fun. Okay, the detective is Inspector Morse. His sidekick... Okay, this is hilarious. His sidekick is Grace Makutsi, who is the assistant at the #1 Ladies Detective Agency. And they are in an English country manor house in the 1920s. Would you read that book? Inspector Morse with his sidekick, Grace Makutsi, who is exceptionally proud of her 97% that she earned at Secretarial College, in an English country manor house in the 1920s. All right, I am mixing these up. Here we go. The next possible book. The detective is Superintendent DL from the Reginald Hill stories. His sidekick is Inspector Pascoe. Okay, that's funny because that's actually true. But they are on the gaslit streets of 19th century London. I would read that story. So that's funny. That's twice that we've had the correct detective with the correct sidekick. You would think that I didn't mix these up, but I am, and I think that that proves that this is truly random. Okay, the next possible book is D.I. Lynley, 8th Earl of Asherton, is the detective. His sidekick is Gentleman's Gentleman Bunter, and they are in a small English village in 1930. I don't know, I have a sneaking suspicion that Lynley could fit very well into a small English village in the 30s, and he's probably used to having a gentleman's gentleman. Okay, here we go. Mixing them up again. We have the detective is Brother Cadfael from the Alice Peter stories, a Benedictine monk. His sidekick is Brother Edolf, who is a Roman Briton in Ireland in the Sister Fidelma stories by Peter Tremaine. And they are driving around 1980s Oxford in a maroon Jaguar. Would you read that book? Brother Cadfael with his sidekick Brother Adolf driving around 1980s Oxford in a maroon Jaguar. I would totally read that book. Okay, next possible book. Sister Fidelma from the Peter Tremaine stories set in 1st century Ireland. The sidekick is Dr. Watson, and they are in a 12th century monastery in England. Would you read that story? 1st century Sister Fidelma with Dr. Watson in a 12th century monastery in England. I would read that story. Okay, the next possible book is the detective is Spencer from the Robert B. Parker stories, Private Investigator. His sidekick is D.S. Barbara Havers from the Lynley Mysteries by Elizabeth George. And they are in the vault of a publishing house in London, 1936. Would you read that book? Private Investigator Spencer with D.S. Barbara Havers in a vault of a publishing house in London in 1936. I would totally read that book. I would love to see Spencer in 1936 London. I think that would be hilarious. And also Barbara Havers and Spencer. That would be a great relationship to see. Okay, the next possibility is the detective is Miss Marple. The sidekick is Madras Fontaine Luggs, who is the ex-criminal chauffeur in the Albert Campion books by Marjorie Allingham in 1st century Ireland. Would you read that book? with Miss Marple as the detective, Lugs as the sidekick in 1st century Ireland. I think so far this is the book that would top my list. Can somebody please write this story, because I would totally read it. Okay, we just have a couple more. Lord Peter Wimsey from the Dorothy L. Sayers books is the detective. His sidekick is Arthur Hastings from Agatha Christie's Poirot in a London club for war veterans, 1928. Would you read that book? Lord Peter Wimsey with his sidekick Arthur Hastings in a London club for war veterans, 1928. What's weird about this one is that Peter Wimsey and Arthur Hastings, their worlds were that time period of 1928, and so a London club for war veterans would not be an unusual environment for either of them. So that would be an interesting book. Okay, the second last one is the detective is Sherlock Holmes. His sidekick is Hawk, who is from the Spencer books from Robert B. Parker, who is a extremely mysterious boxing man from Boston in a tiny white van in modern day Botswana. Would you read that book? Interestingly, I think Sherlock Holmes and Hawk could get along very well. They both have an interest in boxing, and they're both able to take care of themselves if it starts to go down. However, having the two of them together in a tiny white van in modern day Botswana, that would be an interesting story. And the last one. This is the last possible story. The detective is Hercule Poirot. His sidekick is Sheriff Hugh Beringer, who is from the Brother Cadfael books by Ellis Peters, 12th century, on the mean streets of Boston. I would totally read this story. Hercule Poirot and his sidekick, Sheriff Hugh Beringer, on the mean streets of Boston. So, this game was totally fun, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments below if you would read any of those books. And the My March Mystery Madness Mindbender is: what long-running series will always be incomplete because the author died before writing the final book? Put your answers in the comment section down below, and I will see you tomorrow for another March Mystery Madness video. Bye.